We told you Cole Adams would be right back, and here he is. Cole, we've mentioned a bit about Houston. They draw Gonzaga. Let's talk BYU, Houston, West Virginia, and where the Big 12 sits right now. Shot quality has Gonzaga winning this game by 0.3 points, which is not possible, but it will at the very least be a spectacular matchup between the Bulldogs and the Cougars, one that I think we both expect to see come this weekend. Do you think Houston got an unfair shake by meeting Gonzaga in round two?
Yeah, I do believe Gonzaga, especially metrically. I mean, they're a very hot candidate, Gonzaga, to pull off an upset over Houston. I'm still going to side with Houston because I think they're the best team in the Big 12. I think they've got a very winnable bracket. But again, man, it's like the bracketing this year was not good. Yeah. That is definitely the conversation online. And I think that I don't really necessarily believe a lot of schools got a fair shake, especially like when it comes to the seeding lines around the 7 to 10 range. I'd say that things were pretty skewed this year.
Yeah, we're seeing Houston, the number 3 team from KenPom, playing number 9 Gonzaga in the round of 32. Wild that you get that good of a matchup already. This Gonzaga team vaguely reminds me of a school that can make a run like that UCLA did, I think, in year 1 under Mick Cronin when they faced Gonzaga in the Final Four. The winner ended up playing the Baylor Bears. This is what Gonzaga reminds me of this year, one of those lower-seeded, wily teams that has an experienced head coach and makes a run in March. They would have to get past Houston, but it feels like the seeding just doesn't make sense. I want to stick there for a second. What are the other games, the other matchups, the other teams you think, oh my gosh, whether Big 12 or not, how were they seeded here? How did they get such an unfair shake? We could even include teams that were left out like Ohio State or West Virginia or Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you get frustrated with like the coverage of college sports. And I think that the ACC people are hating on the ACC. I believe that Louisville obviously being an 8 seed is insane because they finished top 10 in the AP poll, the final one when it comes to for the tournament, and they're an 8 seed.
Yeah,
it's insane. I mean, I have never seen that happen before. I believe that Marquette's a very strong 7 seed. I mean, even we can go with Kansas. I mean, they're the preseason number 1 overall team, and they're at a 7 seed. That's crazy. In the past, national champion UConn, 8 seed. So I think that some of the bracketing this year was pretty questionable when it comes to some of the bigger brands in the sport. It's going to make for an interesting tournament, especially if some of these pull off some upsets, I'd say potentially.
Do you feel like these brands should carry a little more weight just given their name? So people argue about this all the time. Like, oh, okay, you're the big mighty SEC or you're the big mighty Alabama in football. In basketball, do you think because you are Kansas and Bill Self has proven he can win in March, because you are Gonzaga and Mark Few has proven he's won in March, that should ultimately help sway you upward when it comes to seeding?
Yeah, that's where we get into the conversation. North Carolina making it over West Virginia. It's like,
true.
I think that West Virginia are in that spot when it came to how they were metrically, and then it's like they go against their bracketing principles. So it's like, I just think that's I don't, and it's not even something that we consistently see. It's something that maybe they did just put North Carolina in because of the name brand, which I think that there's a very valid argument for that. I think that it's obviously a completely different sport than football. I think that basketball, There's a lot of variance. I think that you can see it doesn't necessarily matter what your name is. You can kind of go and prove it on the court a little bit differently than football, obviously. So I think that there shouldn't be, bias when it comes to the brand name.
For West Virginia, let's open this conversation there. Their governor's gotten involved. This is as big a stink as I've seen not just a university, but now an entire state make, coming after all of the committee and calling it the National Corrupt Athletic Association. Is West Virginia right in making the stink that they're making right now for missing March Madness as North Carolina got the nod?
I mean, I do believe that if they're going off what they say they should have made the tournament. The metrics favor them, especially over North Carolina, because the ACC was pretty bad this year. I think there is a case. However, I do believe that taking it to the level they've taken it when it comes to the outrage, I feel like is a little strong. And I think that, the governor talking about it, yeah, that's a little, it's a little too much for my liking. But Yeah, man, I definitely believe that there is an argument to be made that they should have made the tournament. I mean, every bracketologist was projecting them to make the tournament. So I think that, I mean, it blew my mind. Like I do a breakdown video every single year where I try to get all the teams out. I have it all pre-recorded and then release it once we figure out the teams, because I like to give a unbiased perspective on where teams are going to be, like without seeing a bracket per se. And as I was waiting during the selection show, I'm just like, where is West Virginia? How have they not picked yet? And then they didn't end up making it. So yeah, it was definitely pretty surprising.
Is this the last that we've seen of Darian DeVries as the head coach at West Virginia?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's like the Indiana job. I feel like that would be that is a premier program within the sport. But man, what a horrible week for West Virginia. I feel really bad for their fans. It's been up and down. It's been up and down since, Bob Huggins was ultimately let go. After making the NCAA tournament in 2023, I feel like they should have been back this year.
Yeah.
I really feel bad for their fans.
Do you think BYU landing at a 6 seed is something you take issue with, or does that feel right for where the Cougars sit in March Madness?
Yeah, I'd say about like 6-5 was what I was predicting, at least what I was expecting. I think that's not necessarily a bad draw for them. I don't know. What do you think, Drake?
I feel like BYU, and part of this is the fact they can't play on Sundays. So
yeah, that's such a good point.
The question is, hey, do you want to be a 3 seed and you can play in Denver and you can play on Saturday instead of Sunday? Sure. The only other option would be a 6 seed. You get great location and you don't play on Sunday. If you were a 4 or a 5, one of those two things is now thrown out of loop. You don't get to play in Denver, which is closer proximity, large portion of LDS faith that lives there. So I think BYU, in the end, being a 6 is going to benefit from having that spot based on fans being able to get to the game against VCU. And maybe instead of taking issue with the seed itself, I do take issue with it being VCU. This feels like a very strong 11 seed, a school that's become kind of a perennial mention in March. We talk about them once every couple of years as someone who could be dangerous. Do you feel as though that matchup then is something that's unfair to give to BYU in round 1?
Potentially. I mean, maybe they could have gotten a team that was in the first 4. Drawing another A10 team like they did last year is a little And the A10 had 2. I mean, they won that matchup last year, Duquesne, and then Dayton won as well. So like 2 teams from the A10 made the round of 32. That's where it's like, I love college basketball because you can just get so much variance from all these even smaller conferences like the Atlantic 10. I do think VCU should have probably been like a 8 to 10 seed. I think they were around that range. So as an 11, that's a pretty tough draw. However, playing in the altitude, they don't have to, they're still in Denver. Maybe that impacts VCU. VCU is a team that likes to slow it down though. So I think that's going to be a really fun matchup either way, which has me excited as a basketball fan.
Cole, have you picked your Final 4 yet? Have you decided who you like the most this March?
I'm somebody that likes to stick to what I say. And I had Auburn and Duke making in the championship if they were going to. And I'm going to stick with that. I still am like kind of trying to figure out Houston maybe or Tennessee. That's one that has me like really frustrated. It's like, man, I do want to see that matchup. It's like that one is one I'm really struggling to like make my final decision on. But yeah, I'll give you the title game. I think that it'd be Auburn and Duke, and I'm going to stick with Auburn. I thought they were the best team all year. Yeah, they're not playing well recently, but I'm going to stick to what I said. So I'm going to stick with that. And then, yeah, we've got this matchup too, Drake. If that happens, I think that's the one that could, really sway things. A lot of people do say though, when in doubt, Izzo it out. So I think that's maybe where I'm going to end up going with that. What do you think of that matchup?
I think that Tom Izzo in March is a tough guy to bet against. The number 11 team right now at Haslam Metrics in the country. I think Michigan State is one that can make an Elite 8 run on the back of Tom Izzo, or a Final 4 run on the back of Tom Izzo. Weird to like use a coach as your cop out, but also that's kind of what I have to default to in March. That's on brand for the sport. It's a coach's sport. It always has been, and hopefully it always will be, because I like the name recognition. I also like that you use Haslam Metrics. Shout out to Eric Haslam. There you go. It's great. Haslametrics to Ken Palm to shot quality to Evan Mia to all of them. This again, it's the greatest month to have them all bookmarked in your desktop. We have gone way too long picking the brain of the biggest ball knower that has ever existed. It's Cole Adams. Cole, where can folks find more of you?
So nice, Drake. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. Obviously, that's in the on the screen. You can also find me on YouTube. That's how Drake and I kind of go back into my YouTube channel. So I've been talking ball with Drake for a little bit now, and thank you again for asking me to join. It's a great month, and we'll see what the Big 12 does. We'll see what they end up doing.
Fingers crossed. When we get the Auburn National Championship, we'll have you on again to gloat. That is Cole Adams at Cole Adams, 2 S's on X. Thanks for making this show your first listen every single day. Come back the rest this week with wall-to-wall March Madness coverage. Games start. I guess games have already started by the time this releases, and March Madness itself starts tomorrow on Thursday. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.